Hey, baby podcast. My name is not Joe Way. It's Britt Yenser. And boy, do we have a good one for you today. I am joined by BC Hatchett and Kaleo Lee, who is rejoining us for this special series sponsored by Corbett. So welcome, guys.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you.
Of course. So, this episode is about modernizing campus technology on a budget, which I'm sure is on the forefront of a lot of people's minds, given how much the market is continuing to fluctuate at this time. So, looking forward to hearing the thoughts of my awesome guests here. And my first question for you is, what tips do you have to help technology managers prioritize which rooms receive new equipment?
I guess I'll dive in and kind of take this first one too. So we use a combination of methods. We first look at our metrics. Data is kind of king on campus. So which rooms are getting the highest utilization? Which rooms are the oldest? Which ones are we receiving significant numbers of issues from? That kind of gives us a good North Star to start going by, because those rooms, as they get older, that mean time to failure increases, and we want to try to keep these rooms working, because there's a tremendous amount of tuition dollars inside a room at one point with the students. So we look at that. We also just keep our ear to the ground, talk to folks like, hey, are you seeing any problems, or is something not working for you? Are teaching styles changing? So we need to think about ways to modernize the rooms to kind of fit your evolving pedagogies. So that's kind of some of the metrics that we use, and then also just talk to our staff. Be like, hey, what are your biggest headaches? What's going to make your life the easiest? And then after that, we can get a little bit better of a comprehensive picture of what we're looking at.
Yeah, I was gonna take a business approach to this and like what are people willing to pay for and all that stuff. But actually, I was thinking about my days as an integrator when I was working with the University of Hawaii. And so I'm gonna switch my answer to what's the most fun. Like we broke out when collaboration, like working in cohorts, was like first becoming a thing. The educators were excited, the tech guy was excited, the IT AV guy was excited, and of course me as an integrator, I was very excited, right? It was a new project. We got to really get our hands dirty and figure this thing out that's never been done before. And so when that took off, it was a huge buzz for the university. It was completely packed. Everybody wanted to use it every single day. And that's where I think whatever is the most fun, just because if it's fun for you, the professional, it's going to be fun for the students. And then it, of course, drives public, people are going to start tweeting, Mike's school is awesome. This is how we're doing things. And so that's, I think, my approach in this, because that's what makes us different, right? Like whether it's business or education, if you're different and fun, people want to be part of that. So that's going to be my answer on this one.
That's interesting. And so, when you bring up like fun, and BC also brought up the concept of tuition dollars, it makes me wonder how much, if at all, do you think we should be considering admissions and enrollment information as stakeholders?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're the ones paying for the money, right? I mean, they're paying the money, right? Whether it's them or the parents or whoever. If you want to learn, you want to join, you want to be part of it, that's going to be the draw. And so that's going to make people want to attend more. That's going to get both engagement and performance up higher. So to me, I think it should be considered. Now, not necessarily a committee standpoint, but definitely take into consideration as far as, what's going to get them excited to come to school.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got to look at it now. Higher ed is no longer, it's not inexpensive. Like it is an investment. Like some of these students are graduating college with a mortgage payment each month. So, you've got to provide that value for them. If they're walking into a classroom and it looks like the best of the 1960s technology, and you've got the old hardback chairs with a nice desk in front of it that doesn't accommodate even an iPad, that's going to be a recruitment problem. That's going to signal to the students like, hey, maybe this won't fit the 21st century economy by the time I graduate. Like is this really going to give me what I want, what I'm going to invest in? So yeah, I'm going to have to look into that. How can I put a metric to fun, and how can I put a metric to excitement? I need to look into that. That's a fantastic idea.
And you had mentioned like the students will take to social media, or they'll actively say, look at this cool thing that we're doing. Like, is that real life? Do you really feel like students are likely to do that?
Yeah, if it's unique, absolutely. If it's something forced, I mean, just think about anything you do from uh, a management standpoint, right? You try to force it on your employees, you try to force it on your students, and you're not going to get that engagement. When you do it intentionally for that student, you're not doing it to force an agenda. You're doing it because you genuinely feel like this is going to help make their lives easier. They're going to want to engage. That's usually when you get that genuine engagement from your student body.
Yeah, it's an avenue for feedback. I mean, there's a few Reddit boards for Vanderbilt, and I'll pop in just for time to time because we don't always hear from students, and we can kind of get behind the scenes. And I was amazed by some of the conversations that were going on behind the scenes about, hey, avoid this building, or avoid this, or now this is really cool. So that was a good way to kind of get some additional information. Every little bit of info that you can get is going to help your outcomes tremendously.
That's awesome, and all really good points. I wouldn't have thought to take to Reddit. So there you go. So as we think about prioritizing rooms and what we're doing, sometimes it comes down to how much money do we have. And, we're relying pretty heavily on capital funding, but how can technology managers offset some capital costs?
Look at offloading some stuff to OpEx. Like, look at software-based solutions. Look at oddly enough, leasing options if you had to, I guess. Whenever times are tough, you've kind of got to do what you can do to continue to serve your university and your students. And sometimes that means getting very, very creative.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing from the software side of the house, we're actually seeing everything BC just mentioned, but we're seeing people trying to get into that advertisement space, let people, push certain products and whatnot. Of course, and actually what I love about that is if they're going to be advertising anyway, be in control of your message, So there was a couple of conversations where can we just do it like a billboard? Like, you don't want that because anybody can put whatever message they want on there. So the couple of universities that we're working with right now, they are looking at how do they be in control. Is there a big event coming out for their, around their university, and being able to advertise that and get the local, restaurants or manufacturers out there to offset that cost. It's an idea, hasn't come out yet, but I've definitely been entertaining a lot more of those conversations.
Do either of you have experience with things like grants?
Just writing and get paid for.
Not with grants, but I mean, we've worked some partnerships and some opportunities with manufacturers to do proof of concept test spaces, where we provide information on how we like the product in exchange for the equipment, and that was I think that's probably as close as we've gotten to any type of grants. So
yeah, there's that actually brings up another good memory. We used to be really good, back to my integrator days. I used to be tight with, like, when interactive whiteboards were first becoming a thing. Some of them really wanted to get it into certain flagship schools. So if we could, they would develop a grant program that basically, if we would put in X amount, they would, give X amount back in cost, or, they would fund some kind of program. And so in that case, that's how we leverage it for our customers.
Awesome. And then, not only do we have to be concerned about funding, but we have to be concerned about our stakeholders too. Like earlier, I had mentioned maybe admissions and people who know about enrollment are a stakeholder we should be considering. So how can strategic relationship building benefit technology managers?
relationships are everything in this business. Like, they literally can make or break projects, or make or break a department. You've got to have those relationships with your campus stakeholders, especially your plant operations and your network operations teams. If you're not friends with them, become really good friends with them, because they can bail you out. But also your strategic relationships with your integration companies, with your manufacturers, even with your colleagues in other schools. all of that, I throughout my career, I've had to call on those folks and ask for favors and give favors, numerous times in order to meet a need or pull off a project. So I can't speak highly enough of how you have to start building those relationships.
Yeah, and that also weighs a lot, on the reverse side, especially if it's my friends and they're vouching for me and my solution, whatever we're putting in, whatever company I'm working for at the time. I also take that back to the company and like, bro, this is my friend. He helped me get into this opportunity. Like, we need to make this thing work. And so, it's because a lot of times it might be a simple bug, right? But being able to get them to kick it into high gear to support and get it up and running so that everybody looks good, so that friendship or that relationship side goes a long way.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of a specific insurance. Back during our lovely times during COVID, I was able to leverage a relationship that we had, or a friendship that I had, in order to get us set up with a fairly large collaboration platform, and it kind of got us bumped ahead of the line, which it was enabled us to get it set up a week ahead of when we were originally supposed to. Which at that point we couldn't lose a minute. So that was, I kind of think about that often. What would have happened if we didn't have that partnership?
What advice would you give to a technology manager who would self-describe as an introvert and who might have a difficult time connecting with people and building the relationships that they need to build?
It's so as a former introvert myself, pick one person. It starts with one. And actually one of the best things is I would always hang out with the guy I like to hang out with who was the most sociable. I literally just rode the coattails, and you meet another person and another person. And so you can ask my parents, it blows everybody's mind, but actually growing up, I was very quiet, very shy. And yeah, it was literally met one person, hung out with them, and then met another person. And now, and that's where I'm not looking at like networking as I'm trying to do business. I'm looking at it as genuine friendships. And so that's how I was able to get out of my introvert shell. It was tough. It freaked me out a lot.
Like, I'm still there. Like I am. It's like I was telling my daughter, like it's a set of skills that you just have to build up. It's not something that's going to come overnight. So if you're trying to get out of your shell a little bit, trying to meet folks and network and get deeper into the community, if at first it doesn't work, don't stop. Keep plugging away. Eventually, every spoonful of sand digs the hole deeper, and you'll eventually get there. And it's, just keep working at it. Be confident of who you are, and it'll happen. It'll definitely happen.
I love that she said it's a skill. It is. I've screwed up a lot. Because as an introvert, you start to think, deeper into something, so one of the biggest skills I didn't have was small talk. And so I would get the deeper questions, and I would offend people just because they think I'm picking apart what it is, but I'm actually just genuinely interested. And so I've learned to talk more at the surface level. So I love that you said
absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's absolutely a skill. And not only do people need to build relationships with the people on their campus, but it's also really helpful to expand your network like we do here. None of us work for the same institution, but we're all colleagues and we can rely on each other. So, what advice would you give anyone who's trying to expand their network past their institution? I'll give you a hint.
Yeah, I was going to say that's kind of where I was going. I was like, find opportunities, like join an organization like HETMA, which happens to be a fantastic organization. I can't speak highly enough about it. But that's the easiest way. Like, the networks are already there, and the networks are always going to be interested in bringing in new folks, because that's the only way that we thrive and grow. So get involved, join HETMA, join a regional group if there is one. Google higher ed AV groups in whatever region you're in. You'll find somebody. You can also talk with, speaking of partnerships, talk with some of your integration companies. They work with other schools. They'll have contacts that you can leverage. I mean, there's plenty of information out there, but the hardest thing is taking that first step and sending that first message. But after you do, once that train keeps rolling, it'll get easier.
Yeah, no, it's we love it. Whether it's part of HETMA or anybody, having a purpose purposeful organization to be part of and kind of get with people with similar interests. It makes that conversation so much easier.
Awesome. Now, sometimes the budget is just too tight, no matter how many funding sources you've gone to. And sometimes, too, you have built such good relationships that you have a lot of people coming to you and they're like, I have needs. And now you're like, I can't meet all of this all at once. So, how can technology managers maximize what they already have, their existing hardware?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah, existing hardware. So, and actually, it's funny. There are ways to repurpose it, and getting creative, whether it be young or old people. You have a plethora of different skills sets out there. I like relying on some of the older people because they know how technology works, right? It's not purely, especially if you used to have stuff not purely in that digital realm. You can start to make things work if it's playing in that copper side of the house. There are separate set of skills that you can kind of mix and match there, buy adapters, make it work with something that doesn't normally work together. And that's what I was actually turned off originally when we first started kind of like during the pandemic talking about what the right way to do certain things are. There is no right way. It's what works, because sometimes you don't have the money for it. So
1,000% on that one. There is no right way. There's only the way that works for you and your company or institution. So, we have a very large closet full of surplus equipment, old equipment that we've pulled out of spaces, spares on shelves. That's kind of how we keep these older spaces going. Because we have budget constraints. We can only do X number of rooms a year, and sometimes you have Y number of rooms that really need to be done. So keeping those break fix spaces, that break fix equipment for those spaces is key. And then also having a staff that knows how to maintain it, knows how to do firmware updates, knows how to do competent troubleshooting, knows how to get creative and do workarounds. That's another big piece of the pie.
sometimes I would say it's when I used to putting my old hat on, when I used to work at Brightsign, we had that same question. I was like, you can repurpose like that box itself. It has certain command protocols built into that. You can just look on some Reddit forums, or there was another GitHub, and a lot of people put a lot of great information on how to program it to do X, Y, Z. So maybe you can't afford a full Crestron system, right? Maybe your quick break fix is to use a digital signage product that's talking to, another platform. So
yeah, I mean, that's fantastic. I like that idea a lot.
When you guys are mentioning repurposing things and just that creativity and flexing that creative muscle, unfortunately, that's not something that everyone necessarily has. So, what resources have you used or heard of that kind of help people to develop that creativity skill, that ability to think outside the box based off of, hey, this equipment on the box, it says it does this, but I can make it do this instead.
Honestly, whenever I have a question like that or a curiosity, I throw it out to the community. I'll go on, Hetma's site. I'll go on James King's Slack channel. I'll go on Reddit. I'll go on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it this week. I'll just throw it out there. And there is a tremendous number of intelligent folks in this community. And so far, they haven't let me down. I've always gotten good feedback or great ideas or better ways to do something.
And I'm going to take it on a personal note as far as, so yes to all of that. And then on top of that, building that personal drive. I don't meet enough people anymore who believe in mastering their craft. Whatever your craft is, whether you're a technology manager, a salesperson, a manager, like whatever your role is, I want to see more people mastering their craft, because then that's when you start getting that obsession to go to the Reddit boards and the Slacks and all that fun stuff, talking to the right people, and then just tinkering, and building that skill set.
Yeah, I can't agree more. Go ahead, BC.
Oh, nothing. I'm just yes, I co-sign.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you guys wanted to make sure that we covered about taking care of our campuses on a budget that we didn't cover yet?
I would, kind of encapsulating the whole conversation from having that relationship to, software and that mix and match of technologies. I will say all of the above, especially with the way software is going, having a relationship with the SaaS side of the house on, I don't know if you call SaaS people manufacturers or developers. We have this internal debate, but whatever it might be, having that relationship is huge because like even for us at Corbett, we're always helping to build that next thing. It's not something we offer, but hey, this guy, I know him really well. He has a great reputation for working with us. And so we will build custom features, and it might turn into a feature that's marketable later on, but it's just something I did for a personal friend to make sure that, he looks like the hero. So, or she.
I don't have anything specific. I mean, other than kind of some of the stuff we've already covered, just really, I can't stress enough the relationship part building. I know I've said that before, but I want to hammer that topic. Relationships can make or break you, and they can serve as a check and a good balance. So don't, be brave, put yourself out there. It will pay dividends.
Now, just a shout out again for this is I know we didn't do it publicly, but that relationship's also saved for this. Like, so Corbett sponsored this. We had somebody who didn't show up, and then I reached out to BC. I was like, "Bro, are you free tonight?" He's like, "Yeah, let's do this thing." And then our other guest came up, so now it worked out perfect. So relationships in this case made me. It saved my butt.
100%. You never know when it's gonna come in clutch. And one thing that's kind of missing from this conversation when we're talking about relationships is repairing relationships. So do you have any advice or a story about a time that you're like, I had a faculty member or a client who was so unhappy with this technology that they had, and this is how I repaired that relationship with them as we met their needs?
Yeah, we run into this sometimes. I mean, faculty are very demanding. They have a specific way they want things to work. We had a faculty member that was really upset with the results of one of our upgrades. It kind of did not meet their needs, and I'm a big believer in being accountable and saying when something didn't work, you be honest with it. And we had a very long conversation about, yes, we missed the mark on this one. I'm sorry. I'm sorry we did not meet your needs. We'll fix it. And then you dedicate yourself to fixing it and back up what you say. If you say you're going to do something, actually do that thing.
Yeah, honesty is a big one. I love that. It's for the honesty side. For me, it's if you can not burn it in the first place is clutch. But if you screw up, we're not perfect, right? It's just owning up to that. Nobody's gonna benefit if you're like, that's not my fault. That's not my fault. Like and you start pointing the fingers. So yeah, just working together. And I've been able to kind of repatch some of those. Just be like, hey, bro, like this is what we tried. This is what you wanted. How do we meet in the middle? So yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you both for your awesome points. Great advice. And at this point, I'm going to take us off the rails on the rapid round. And the first rapid round question I have for you is, if your digital signage on campus had a out loud voice, what celebrity voice would you give it?
I'm going with the late James Earl Jones. I love his voice.
That's a good one.
Oh yeah. Tell me it wouldn't catch your attention. I mean,
it would, and that would be an attention getter. I'm either thinking Mufasa or Darth Vader is about ready to get me. So
right, that Simba.
I couldn't come up with one. Like, this is probably my favorite question I've ever been asked on a podcast. So I have three that I had to go with. One is Walton Goggins. I think having Uncle Baby Billy telling me my wayfinding instructions would be absolutely genius. Two would be Matt Berry. If you haven't watched What We Do in the Shadows, having Laszlo kind of instruct you would be great. And then third, because it's Tennessee, I got to have Dolly Parton try to give me instructions. So
I would love Dolly Parton.
I would love Dolly. Yes, that is the number one answer. And before you said Dolly Parton, I was ready to tell you both you're absolutely wrong. The correct answer is Gilbert Gottfried.
that would be fantastic.
That is awesome.
But yes, I accept Dolly Parton as the correct answer. All right. So Infocom is right around the corner, which means AV Roki is coming up. Given that, what is your go-to karaoke song?
I don't really do karaoke, but I've been thinking about it this year, and I've been trying to think if I'm going to do one, what's a song? And I think I'm going to go with Weezus and Teenage Dirtbag. I think that's going to be a fun one to do.
So I am a terrible singer. I was strongly encouraged to go up and do AV Roki session once upon a time, and I did Gangster's Paradise. So like I feel like rap,
there you go,
my space. But I gotta find a new one. I've already done it twice. I got called out for it. So like, all right.
I don't know. It could just be your thing. You don't have to change.
Yeah, you don't have to. If that's your go-to song, like there are people that do karaoke and they have go-to songs, and if that's yours, ride with it.
Yeah.
I accept both of your answers. I would have said Rock Lobster, but that's all right.
That'd be a good one.
All right, and the last and final rapid round question is borrowed from Brave Space, which is my podcast, which airs on the Higher Ed AV network. And it is the last lecture topic. So in higher education, we have the tradition of the last lecture where faculty can speak to students as if it's the last time they ever will, and it doesn't need to be related to their subject matter. Given that, what would your last lecture topic be?
Learn and file your taxes. It's the whole thing's rough. I file my taxes every year, but I'm getting better. I'm learning about, how to make your money go further. And so learn and file your taxes.
That's a good one. The only guarantees in life, death and taxes.
That's true. I don't know. That's a hard question. I think I would probably just Irish goodbye the lecture and just not show up.
I guess that's it. We're done.
Yeah, I don't know. Just like show up for his last lecture and he just doesn't show up. Okay, there you go.
I think they would try to spin that into some sort of life is tough lecture about loss and disappointment.
I don't know. It could be fun. Yeah, he disappointed us one last time. So.
Oh, that's a good one.
All right. Well, thank you guys for this great conversation and for humoring me in the rapid round. BC, how can people contact you after this episode airs if they would like to do so?
I'm on LinkedIn and also on X or Twitter at BC Hatchett.
Awesome. And Kaleo?
Yeah, kaleo.lee@corbett.com. If you find me on X or any of those, it's either Kaleo or Kaleo Iini. So
awesome, guys. Thank you so much for this good time. And this was the third Corbett sponsored thing. So thank you to Corbett. And we have one more to go. So stay tuned for that. This was the Higher Ed AV podcast. Come back, music. Present our institutions or companies or sponsors. And if you didn't like the opinions you heard here today, there might be better ones next time.